That's right. I absolutely agree. You know, something that the Quran says, the Quran talks about heaven and hell, you know, not being places, but being actually states of mind. So, what we learn in the Moorish Science Temple of America is those particular lessons and exercises that allows for us to master our minds. So, in mastering our minds, we know that we actually create, you know, our living conditions or our living mind space. You know, my brother Shay Rael used to always talking about, you know, having the chaotic mind space versus the peaceful mind space and the ability to create this space for yourself. And as a Moorish American, somebody who knows themselves, they know that this ability, that this capacity actually exists within them.
Islam, Islam, Islam. I give praise to Allah, honor to His holy prophet, Noble Ali. I give honor to all of the past and the present true leaders of this Moorish Science Temple of America and their officers and their stations. I give honor to all the true and the faithful members of this Moorish Science Temple of America. And I give a special honor to everybody who just, how can I put this? Do everything that they can to be the best version of themselves for the people who they love. I hope I said that right. Islam. I want to take a read. For the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, what I'm about to read, we are all very familiar with. And for those who are not members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, but you may want to, know a little bit about us, check this out. All right. This is the voice of the prophet. If you have race pride and love your race, join the Moorish Science Temple of America and become a part of this divine movement. Then you will have power to redeem your race because you will know who you are and your forefathers were. Because where there is unity, there is strength. Together we stand, divided we fall. Come, good people, because I, the prophet, sent to redeem this nation from mental slavery, which you have now, need every one of you who think that your condition can be better. This is a field open to strong men and women to uplift the nation and take your place in the affairs of men. I'm going to stop right there, Islam. So the Prophet Noble Ali here in this particular document, he establishes a criteria. He establishes a criteria. The Moorish Science Temple of America, it's not for anybody. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's the truth. It's just not for anybody, and that does not mean that salvation is not for everybody, because it is. Tonight, I want to talk about something that happened, a tragic situation that occurred out in Dallas, Texas. The young brother, Corey Cobb Bey. That's what we know him as. We know him as Corey Cobb Bey. Now the whole world also, those who know him, they know him as Corey Cobb Bey. And it's something to be learned just from that, because I was having a conversation with the governors, K. Glover Hill, today about this same said situation. And I said something, I told the governors, I said, you know what? I am almost certain, because so many Moors are saying, this Moor is not, he wasn't a member of the temple. He wasn't in the temple. He wasn't actively participating. So I am almost positive. This is what I told. I said, I am almost positive that this Mo do not have any legal identification that says Corey Cobb Bey. I'm almost for certain. His driver's license don't say Corey Cobb Bey. His state ID don't say Corey Cobb Bey. His birth certificate don't say it. His social security card don't say it. I'm almost certain of this. Right? And yet and still, all of the newscasters, the police officers, and everybody else who've been saying this young brother's name in association with this tragic situation, they have not failed to call him Corey Cobb Bey and to make it known that he proclaimed himself a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I just want to point that out. And I want all of the Moors, and I want everybody else out there You know, how difficult is it for you to get these individuals to acknowledge that you are ill or obey? Unless you go through the proper steps to actually make this legal and lawful. How difficult is it? I just want to point that out. There is absolutely no way to justify what this young brother did. Nor would any good person, especially not a good Moorish American, even attempt to justify it. That's not why I'm here. It's not what I'm speaking to. I want to make for certain that in this case, we are not blaming a victim. All right? Let's not blame the victim. When I went back and I started to look at, you know, some of the posts and some of the things and read and, you know, and take a look at YouTube and see, you know, some of the brothers' actions, you know, leading up to this point, it was quite obvious to me that mentally, this young man was going through some stuff. I mean, I go to school for psychology. I study psychology. I just came from a place where the mass majority of the people in this United States of America who have these undiagnosed mental illnesses end up in prison. And that's if something so tragic as what took place in Dallas does not occur. Okay? Unless you have actually encountered and dealt with just, you know, someone who has severe mental schizophrenia, bipolarism, some of the different forms of amnesia. Why? Penitent Bay, why are you saying amnesia? Because amnesia can make a person forget how to act. Amnesia can make a person forget that their mother is their mother or that their father is their father. And I speak from a platform of experience because my son is going through these things. Okay? My child. I speak from a platform of experience because I just left the prison system where I ministered to so many young men going through these things. Especially with this new synthetic drug called Spice, K2. I also said to the seekers, I'm almost willing to bet that brother was smoking Spice. Okay. The seekers, Janacia Magnia Bay, made a good point, a valid point. She said, we do not know what all this young brother was going through. We are simply guessing. We're trying to diagnose a situation that cannot be diagnosed because all of the people who played parts in it are now gone. And that speaks to where we have failed somebody. Listen, so much that our people suffer because of mental illness can be handled if we would just be there for one another. I mean, literally, so much suffering can be done away with if we would just pay attention to one another. When you see people who you know start to act differently than what's common, their behavior patterns start to change, especially if they start to seclude themselves, or they start to act snappy, they start to have these violent mood swings, start to say things that they have, this not normal. Don't ignore this. Don't ignore it. And let me tell y'all something. I want to tell y'all a story, all right? I don't like talking about this, but I want to tell y'all a story because Allah has a way of preparing us for our futures. When I was 8 years old, okay, I had a big brother. He was 16, all right? My big brother committed suicide at 16 years old when I was 8 years old. My big brother and my sister had an altercation. In my mama's house, we don't fight one another. We didn't grow up in a house, you know how other little brothers and sisters or brothers and sisters grow up fighting one another. We didn't do that. So in our house, my brother and my sister had this altercation. My mom come running home. My mom was at work. So my mom, she comes running home from work. And when she runs, she says to me, she sees me, I'm 8 years old. She say, what happened? You know, so I told my mother what happened. And then my big sister comes around the corner. My mother sees my sister, and my mother tears into my sister. My sister was 20. My mother tore into my sister. You don't be fighting no man, you don't be starting no fights, this, that, and the third. I don't be doing all this. My mother tore into her, cursed her out. Then she stepped into the house, and my big brother came out the back room. My mother tore into my brother. You don't be fighting no women. I ain't raised you to be fighting no women. What the heck you doing? She tore into him. But my big brother did not see my mother tear into my sister. So my big brother went back to his room, thinking that my mother had picked a side. Soon as my big brother went back to his room, me, my little sister, my big sister, my mother, and my big sister's best friend sat down in the living room, and my mother tore back into my big sister again. And then my big brother came out the room, and everybody was quiet. He left out. He walked out of our apartment. We stayed on 5255 South Aberdeen. My brother walked out of that apartment. He went to the corner store, which was attached to our building, and bought a brand new pair of shoestrings. When he came back in walking with them shoestrings, I looked at them shoestrings, and I'm 8 years old. Something in me told me that something bad was about to happen. Something bad is about to happen. My big brother turns around and tells my mother, you always taking her side. My mother like, what? I ain't taking no sides. And she told him again, you don't be fighting no women. And my big brother went back to his room and closed the door, and I sat there in front of that floor model TV, feeling in my heart that something bad was about to happen. Something told me to go back there and tell my brother that my mother had cussed Punkin out. Now, I didn't really understand why, because I didn't know nothing about no suicide back then. I was 8 years old. And I sat there, and I didn't go back there and talk to my brother. But something told me to. Then later on that night, I got out the shower, and my mother was on the phone talking to my grandma. And my mother was telling my grandma, my mother say these jokers in here fighting like cats and dogs. My grandmother said to my mother, where Punkin? That's my sister. Oh, she over her boyfriend house. Where Pancho? That's my brother. He in the room. He ain't came out all day. My grandmother told my mother, you better go and check on that boy. Make sure he ain't killed himself in that room. My mother say he ain't did nothing like that. She said, Meech, that's me. Go in there and tell Pancho to come in. So I go, knock on the door. Nobody answer. I open the door and look in. I don't see my brother. He ain't in there. So I go back and I tell my mama, Pancho not in there. She tell my grandmother, Pancho ain't there. My mother had her room situated in our apartment where she could sit there with the door open and see she could see all our emotions. Wherever we went, she could see. She had her room situated right there for that purpose. My mother say, that boy ain't walked past here. My mother told me, here, talk to your grandmother. Let me go in here and look. And my mother went in that room, and next thing you know, I heard somebody holler. I heard my mother holler. I never heard nothing like that in my life. I told my grandma, hold on. And I went in there, and my mother done picked up the phone in the kitchen. And she trying to dial 911, but my grandma is on the other phone in the bedroom. So I look at my mother, and I look back in my brother's room, and I noticed something that I didn't notice at first. My dresser, which was in my brother's room, was pulled in front of the closet. So I stood up on the bed and I looked, and then I seen my brother in there hanging in that closet. My brother's tongue was hanging down to his chest. His face was sunk in. It was all purple. It was just sunk in. And I threw the dress out the way, and I tried. The first thing I could think is to try to lift him up to take the stress off his neck because he's hanging there choking. All right, I'm 8 years old. Instantly, I really ain't gonna work. So I run in there. We had just got a brand new Ginsu set. I go in there and I get the Ginsu knife. And I went in and I cut my brother down. My brother was a bodybuilder. They say they never seen a 16-year-old body like that. I picked my brother up and I laid my brother down on the bed. And all of the saliva and the vomit that could not get past because of the shoestrings tied around his neck, it just all started coming up. I turned them on his side so it can all come up because I'm thinking I don't want him to choke. But then I looked at him. I said, ain't no way he can choke. He dead. So I ran back in there. Now my little sister is in there crying. I ran in there. I picked my little sister up. My little sister was 6 years old. I picked her up. I set her on the bed. Sit right here, baby. I picked up the phone. I said, Grandma, Poncho hung yourself. I got to call an ambulance. I hung up. I went back in there and I got that phone from my mother. My mother done went into shock. I went in there and I got that phone from my mother. And I said, give me the phone. And I hung the phone up and I called an ambulance. And then the ambulance came. I went outside to meet the ambulance. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, y'all. I went outside to meet the ambulance. So everybody looking at me, Meese, what you doing out here? Oh, my mama don't be let me be outside at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't want nobody running up in my apartment. So I told them I'm just waiting on somebody. All the police and stuff, they come, they run in. I'm going to stop that story right there because I don't like to talk about it. And it's not that I don't like to talk about it because I don't like to relive it. You know, I'm a Moorish American. We know that death is not something that's real. Okay? Death is not something that's real. I don't like to talk about it because I know that that situation that I went through is not so unique to me that it will not cause other people to relive the same situation that they have already lived through. But they may not be as prepared as I am to bear those burdens any further than they have already bared them. So I don't want anyone to have to relive that type of trauma. All right. So that's why our heart goes out to the family members of Corey Cobb Bey. That's why our heart goes out to the family members of those officers who were executed by that brother. Yes, he did that. All right. And then they turned around and they executed him. Ain't no such thing as a life for a life. We are invaluable. Each and every single last one of us. But my heart goes out to the individuals who those individuals owe the responsibility to. And now they are left to wonder, you know, how are they going to do this or how they're going to live without their loved one. That no one wants to have to go through that. And no one should want to see anyone else go through that. While at the same time, what I do not appreciate is for members of the Moorish Science Temple of America to try to step back now. No. A member's interest can be in only one direction. We don't step back when these type of things happen. These type of things are lessons. We need to not allow for there to be any more Corey Cobb Beys, okay? Not within the jurisdiction of our responsibility. Now, ones will say, well, man, that Mo wasn't going to the temple, this, that, and the third, or whatever. I heard one Mo say, you know, Grand Sheik, he ain't seen the Mo in 7 years. I'm here in Peoria, Illinois. It's quite a few brothers and a few sisters here who say they Moorish Americans. Some of them wear their faces and terms all the time. They don't come to the temple because, see, it has become a custom to be Moorish American on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Okay? This is what the Moors is joining. All right? Where we do the work at, they're not accustomed to that. Where we have to rely upon one another and call upon one another in these times of need, they're not accustomed to that. What Mo even told me. I keep on asking, man, do you need any help? He keeps, I'm going through this, Mo. What's up? You need me to come right now? What do you need me to do? I'm here for you. He straight up told me, oh, I ain't used to that. Well, get used to it then. Get used to it. If that brother's in adversity, assist him. If that sister is in trouble, forsake her not. Not only is that the law, that is the covenant of the Asiatic nations. the Holy Covenant. We don't have no choice but to live according to these instructions. We don't have no choice. The Prophet Noble Ali said that all true Moorish Americans will and must obey the law was laid down to them by their prophet. They will and they must. And I bear witness. I will and I must. The must part, it don't even matter. That don't even matter. I'm going to do it because I don't know that there's anything else to do. Okay? We are Moors. Psychosis episodes are not unique to any people. Everybody in America has the same type of issue at their dining table. And if it has not shown up yet, it will. It will. We need to be more responsible and handle these situations, address these issues at their root, okay? Crime fighting does not start in the back of police cars. It does not start in courtrooms. It does not start on prison yards. It starts at home. As soon as your child, with that curiosity that children have, get up and start to explore life around them, that's when the crime fighting starts. The majority of the mental illnesses that people suffer from are simply behavior disorders. Listen, y'all, they're behavior disorders. These are people who have grown into adulthood and they just don't know how to act. Real talk. When they were children, nobody never straightened them out. They say, oh man, look at that bad boy. Look at that bad girl. What in the mother freak is a bad child? What's that? Allah don't send children to this earth bad. He don't send people to this earth bad. Spirits don't materialize bad. Stop casting these wicked spells on your children. And then when they grow up and they start acting bad for real, now you don't know what to do. The Quran said, let no, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts because I know that if there were enough people, and I say this in all modesty, I say this humbly, I got to speak the truth. It hurts so bad because I know that if there were enough people who felt the way I do, who love people the way that I love people, we wouldn't be going through nowhere nearly as much crap as we go through. We wouldn't be going through nowhere nearly as much crap. But at the same time, I understand that, and praise Allah. A great deal of y'all ain't never had to go through the things that forces us to learn to love. But the Quran, it warns us. It says that unnumbered foes will stand before the face of man, and these he must overcome them, every one. So be on the lookout, because we all going to have to go through these things. I made a vow when I was a child, because I should have opened my mouth and I didn't open my mouth. And maybe if I would have opened my mouth, things would have been different. But I made a vow back then that I was going to open my mouth. If I can do something about it, I'm going to do something about it. I'm not going to just sit back, stand back, and watch people, fall in holes or suffer anything that I could prevent. I was made to take that stance and to think this way and to become this way. It cost me. It cost my whole family. All right? Now, sadly, when my grandmother told my mother, and I just want to say this, when my grandmother told my mother to go in there and check on my brother because he probably killed himself in there, It was because my grandmother knew that my big brother was suicidal. Because my big brother, who was only a child, had shared this with my grandmother. And the way good women do, sometimes even when it's wrong to do it, she kept that secret until it was too late. She kept it secret until it was too late. Them ain't the type of secrets that you should keep, okay? Those are not the type of secrets that you keep. When you love someone, that means that you do for the individual what needs doing. And it might not necessarily be what they want you to do. You say to them what needs to be said, but they might not want to hear it. But that's what love is. Love is Allah. Allah is love. Allah don't give us everything that we want, because most of the things we want, we don't want to do what it takes to earn those things. And if we had those things, we would hurt ourselves with those things. So Allah, being better and wiser, he don't give us those things. When you have somebody who is suffering from a mental health crisis, and you are stable right now, you are better and wiser right now. Now, y'all remember what I just told y'all, though, in the beginning of this. That brother ID driver's license, nothing don't say Corey Cobb Bey. So them doggone Romans down there that keep on wanting to point out, because it's associated with the crime. Now they trying to associate the Moorish Temple of America with this type of behavior. No, associate the disease. Associate the mental illness. That's the cause. Don't you dare say because he was a member of the Moorish Temple of America. Don't you dare say that that's what we do. Obedience to law, respect, loyalty to government, tolerance, and unity are the fundamental principles of this Moorish Temple of America. We are a principled people who live according to the grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And that goes without a doubt or a contradiction. Don't you dare try to say that because he was a member of the Moorish Temple of America that you're going to associate that type of behavior with us. You don't associate the behavior of them ones who be shooting up them churches and shooting up them schools with the churches where they come from. So don't do it to mine. We're not going to step back because that wouldn't be irresponsible. Yes, it was tragic. It was wrong. It's no justification, and our heart goes out to the people who suffer today because of it. But you're not going to say that it was because of us. Now, I'm going to say to the leaders, the sheiks, and adepts in the Moorish Temple of America, we got to do a better job. We have to do a better job.
That's right. I absolutely agree. You know, something that the Quran says, the Quran talks about heaven and hell, you know, not being places, but being actually states of mind. So what we learn in the Moorish Temple of America is those particular lessons and exercises that allows for us to master our minds. So in mastering our minds, we know that we actually create, you know, our living conditions or our living mind space. You know, my brother Shay Rael used to always talking about, you know, having the chaotic mind space versus the peaceful mind space, and the ability to create this space for yourself. And as a Moorish American, somebody who knows themselves, they know that this ability, that this capacity actually exists within them.